On the 28th of June, 1914, a driver in Sarajevo took a wrong turn. That's it. That's the mistake. One wrong turn, down one narrow street, in a city most of the world could not find on a map. 4 years later, 4 empires were gone. 20 million people were dead. The map of the entire planet had been redrawn, and the ingredients for an even bigger war were already sitting in the oven. But here's the part that should genuinely bother you. This war had 7 off-ramps, 7 separate moments where one person, making one slightly less stupid decision, could have stopped the whole thing before it started. I'm going to show you every single one. This is the First World War. The war nobody wanted, nobody could stop, and nobody, and I was even slightly ready for. To understand how a wrong turn ended the world, you need to understand what Europe in 1914 was. Officially, the most advanced civilization in history. Electric light, motion pictures, aspirin, hats the size of coffee tables. Unofficially, 6 heavily armed empires standing in a very small room, all holding matches, all insisting they're the responsible one. Britain owns a quarter of the planet, largest navy on Earth, would like everyone to stop looking at its stuff. France lost a war to Germany in 1871, lost 2 provinces with it, and has thought about nothing else since. For 43 years, Germany, also 43 years old, enormously powerful, desperate to be respected, building a giant battle fleet purely to make Britain uncomfortable, which works. Russia, enormous, poor, slow, self-appointed big brother of Slavic peoples everywhere, whether they asked or not. Austria-Hungary, a dozen nationalities, several of whom would like to leave immediately, held together by paperwork, and one extremely old man. Now add 2 ingredients. 1, nationalism. People had started thinking of themselves not as subjects of a king, but as a people who deserved their own country. Beautiful idea. Unless you'd live inside a multi-ethnic empire, in which case, it's a bomb with a fuse on it. 2, the alliances. And this is the one that kills everybody. Germany and Austria-Hungary sign a deal. France, Russia, and Britain line up on the other side. On paper, it's a safety system. Attack one, fight all of them, so nobody attacks anybody. In reality, Europe had built a machine where if any 2 countries had a fight, all of them did. And then everyone forgot they'd built it. One last thing, remember it, because it matters more than any king or general in this story. Every war plan depended on speed. Millions of men moved by railway, on schedules written years in advance, down to the minute, which meant that once a country pressed start, it could not press stop without the whole plan collapsing. Europe in 1914 wasn't a powder keg. A powder keg needs someone to light it. Europe was a machine that only had an on switch. Which brings us to Bosnia, annexed by Austria, Hungary in 1908, and full of Serbs who very much wanted to not be in Austria-Hungary. Some of them formed secret societies, one of which was quietly linked to officers inside Serbian military intelligence. They wanted an independent South Slav state, and they decided the fastest route was to kill somebody important. Enter Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, who, in a detailed history finds genuinely funny, was one of the few men in Vienna arguing for giving the Slavs more rights. He decides to visit Sarajevo on June 28th, the most sensitive date in the Serbian national calendar, in an open-top car. With the route printed in the newspapers, 6 young men are waiting along that route, and in fairness to them, they are terrible at this. The first loses his nerve, the second throws a bomb, which bounces off the folded roof and explodes under the car behind, injuring several officers. The Archduke's driver floors it, and they're gone. Off-ramp number 1, an assassination attempt has just failed in public. Any sensible person cancels the day and leaves the city. Franz Ferdinand instead attends his reception, gives his speech, and then announces he'd like to visit the wounded officers in hospital. Brave? Genuinely, yes. Wise? We're about to find out. Nobody has told the driver about the change of route. He takes the original turn, the wrong one, down a narrow side street. Someone shouts at him. He stops and starts reversing. Off-ramp number 2. And it lasts about 4 seconds. Because standing on that exact street, at that exact moment, is one of the assassins from the failed attempt that morning, a 19-year-old named Gavrilo Princip. The car has stalled about 5 feet away from him. 2 shots. The Archduke and his wife, Sophie, are dead within the hour. Here's the strange part. The Archduke dies in June. The war doesn't start until August. For over a month, Europe stands at the edge. And every single person who could step back doesn't. Austria-Hungary wants to crush Serbia. Not investigate, crush. This is the excuse they've waited years for. But Serbia has a big friend called Russia, so Vienna first checks with its big friend. And Germany says, do whatever you want. No conditions, no limits. Off-ramp number 3. Germany was the only country on Earth that could have told Austria-Hungary to calm down and been listened to. Instead, it handed a blank check to the least stable government in Europe and went on holiday. Genuinely, the Kaiser went sailing, so Austria-Hungary writes Serbia an ultimatum, deliberately designed to be impossible. The entire point is that Serbia says no. Off-ramp number 4. Serbia says yes to almost all of it, offering to send the rest to international arbitration. Even the Kaiser, reading it, says the reason for war has vanished. Austria-Hungary declares war anyway. They never wanted an answer. They wanted a war. And now the machine turns on. Russia mobilizes to protect Serbia. The Tsar tries to limit it to the Austrian border, and his generals tell him that's impossible, because the timetables have no setting for a little bit of war. Off-ramp number 5. Killed by a railway schedule. Russian mobilization puts Germany's plan on a clock. Germany demands Russia stop. Russia doesn't. Germany declares war on Russia. Then, because of the plan, declares war on France, a country that has done absolutely nothing. 2 cousins exchanging polite telegrams could not stop it. The trains were already moving. Germany's problem was simple. Enemies on both sides. Its solution rested on one assumption. Russia is huge and slow, so we have 6 weeks to knock France out before turning around. Except France's German border is a wall of forts, so the plan goes around. Through neutral Belgium, Germany asks Belgium for permission to march 750,000 men through its territory, promising to leave nicely afterwards. Off-ramp number 6, Belgium says no, and they fight. Outnumbered, outgunned, and for long enough to wreck the schedule the entire German war plan is built on. It also does something Germany failed to price in. Britain had spent the whole crisis being deliberately vague about whether it would fight. But Britain had signed a treaty guaranteeing Belgian neutrality in 1839. Germany's chancellor reportedly could not believe Britain would go to war over a 75-year-old piece of paper. Britain went to war over the 75-year-old piece of paper. And pushing through Belgium, German forces executed thousands of civilians and burned whole towns in reprisal. Allied propagandists took those real atrocities, inflated them enormously, and printed them everywhere, especially in America. Germany handed its enemies the moral high ground in month 1 and never got it back. That's 6 off-ramps, 6 chances, all gone inside 5 weeks. Every country marched off certain of 2 things, that it would be short and that they would win. Here's the horror at the center of this war. Weapons had leapt forward, tactics hadn't. Generals were still picturing brave men crossing open ground, and the ground now belonged to artillery and the machine gun. In the opening months, France alone lost hundreds of thousands of men. The Germans got close enough that the French government left Paris. Then France counterattacked at the Marne, and the advance broke. The 6-week plan was dead, so both sides dug in. Then each tried to sneak around the other's open flank, failed, went further north, failed again, and kept going until they hit the sea and ran out of Europe. And here's how through worked. Days of artillery, meant to cut the enemy's wire and break their nerve. Then men climb out and walk into open ground full of mud, craters, and wire. The problem? That bombardment tells the defenders exactly where you're coming and gives them days to prepare. So they come back up, set up their machine guns, and wait. Thousands could die for a few hundred meters. Ground often lost again the following week. And between attacks, men lived down there in freezing water with rats, lice, disease, and the constant company of the ones who hadn't made it back. Millions of people endured that. For 4 years. And because these were empires, this was never going to stay in France. Britain and France called on troops from India, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the Caribbean, and across Africa. Millions of men fighting for empires that did not consider them equal citizens. In Africa, both sides forcibly recruited hundreds of thousands of local porters, and far more of them died of hunger and disease than of bullets. It is one of the most ignored death tolls of the war. Italy had actually been allied with Germany and Austria-Hungary, then decided that alliance was more of a suggestion, took the Allied offer of Austrian land, and switched sides. It then fought 11 consecutive battles at the same river for almost nothing. 11, same river. The Ottomans joined the Central Powers, turning the Middle East into a war zone and putting Britain's oil on the front line. The Allies tried to knock them out at Gallipoli. 8 months, 250,000 casualties per side, and an evacuation. Comfortably the best-run part of the operation. And in 1915, the Ottoman government answered its defeats by turning on its own Armenian population. Mass deportations, death marches, and killings that took an estimated 1 to 1.5 million lives. Most historians recognize it as the Armenian Genocide, and it is not a footnote to this war. It is one of its central crimes. Meanwhile, both sides hunted for a machine to end the deadlock. Poison gas. Aircraft, which went from spotting for artillery to shooting each other down. Airships bombing cities. So for the first time, being a civilian 100 miles from the front was not safe. Submarines sinking passenger ships, including the Lusitania, nearly 1,200 dead, around 128 of them American. And in 1916, the tank. None of it broke the deadlock. Each side just made the other's war worse, because by 1916, strategy had stopped being about winning and started being about exhaustion. At Verdun, the Germans attacked a position they knew France would never abandon, the stated aim being to bleed the French army white. 10 months, 700,000 casualties. To relieve the pressure, Britain attacked at the Somme, and on day 1 took nearly 60,000 casualties in one day. And here is off-ramp number 7. By late 1916, both sides were exhausted, broke, and starving. There were peace notes, attempts at mediation, a real and narrow window for a negotiated end, and it closed. Because every government had now spent so many lives that coming home with nothing was unthinkable. They kept going precisely because of how much they had already lost. That's the last exit. From here, the only way out is through. By 1917, everyone is at breaking point. French units refuse to attack. Germany is starving under a British naval blockade, and Russia has simply run out of everything. It starts with bread queues and strikes. Within days, it's a revolution, and a dynasty that ruled for 300 years is gone. Months later, the Bolsheviks seize power and pull Russia out of the war entirely. For Germany, this is the miracle. The Eastern Front is closing. Every division there can go west. There is one problem, and it is enormous. America had stayed out, sold supplies to the Allies, and got very rich doing it. Germany decides the only way to win before America matters is to sink everything approaching Britain, including American ships, a bold way to keep somebody neutral. Then Germany sends a coded telegram to Mexico, offering an alliance and the return of Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona if Mexico attacks the United States. Britain intercepts it, decodes it, and makes absolutely sure the Americans see it. In April 1917, the United States declares war, and it will take a year for American troops to arrive in force. So Germany has 1 year to win a war it has failed to win for 3. In March 1918, Germany throws everything it has at the Western Front. Elite storm troops, new tactics, the largest bombardment of the war. And it works. The Allied line buckles and the Germans advance further in weeks than in the previous 3 years combined. Then they punch again. And again. 5 times, and each punch is weaker because Germany is spending men it cannot replace, while roughly 10,000 American soldiers arrive every single day. In August, the Allies hit back, and this time they've learned how. Tanks, aircraft, and artillery working together, attacking in bites rather than lunges. The German army starts retreating and does not stop. Bulgaria collapses in September. The Ottomans in October. Austria-Hungary in November. Not so much defeated as dissolved, its nationalities walking out to declare their own countries. And in Germany, sailors ordered on a suicidal final mission mutiny instead. Within days, the Kaiser has fled, and Germany is a republic. On the 11th of November, 1918, at 11 in the morning, the guns stopped. Men died that morning attacking positions that were about to be handed over anyway. The peace treaty was signed at Versailles on the 28th of June, 1919, 5 years to the day since a driver in Sarajevo took a wrong turn. Germany lost territory, lost its military, was told the war was its fault, and was handed a bill it could never pay. Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire were carved into new countries, some of whose borders are still being argued over with weapons today. 20 million people were dead, and the men in that room believed they had just ended the war. The French commander Ferdinand Foch read the treaty and said, "This is not peace. It is an armistice for 20 years. He was wrong. It was 20 years and 65 days, 7 off-ramps, 7 chances. Every single one taken by somebody who thought they were being reasonable. Tell me in the comments, which one would you have taken?"